Crazy day today in the markets. If you haven't seen already, oil prices have fallen over 100%. Who could have imagined? I never thought this was ever possible for a market to go over 100%. Oil's down, meanwhile my hair is sticking up. I don't know the difference here, it just keeps going that way. But it went to nearly 360% down. I'll leave the figure up here. It was crazy, that was the low. Got to around negative $40 a barrel, before closing up at around negative $13 per barrel at the close this morning. Well, in the afternoon in US time. Here in Australia, it's in the morning at around 7 a.m. I have to say that's one of the most craziest things I've ever seen in my trading, investing history. And that started way back in 2006 when I got my first property in Brisbane. The market was going nuts. I happened to be working in property management at the time, so I saw all the rentals going crazy. People just coming in, just trying to get any property they could. Markets are going up. We generally see the property prices and any prices in stock markets, commodities markets, go crazy at the end of cycles. And if you're a viewer of my channel, you know that I am very heavy into understanding and researching cycles. So I'll get into that later into the video, but I've got a whiteboard marker here. I'll put some notes up here. Let's check out the news headlines. Let's try and make any sort of sense out of what's going on, why it's happening, and most importantly, which is why we all watch these millions of YouTube personal finance and wealth creation videos, how can we make money from it? So if you're new to the channel, thanks for joining me here. Remember to like the video and subscribe down below. My name is Pizzino and I put out videos on personal finance and wealth creation. I'm mainly focused in the cycles, in particular the property cycles, and then using that within the stock market to understand when is a good time to buy and when is a good time to sell. It's based on human psychology and history. And on top of talking about cycles, I'm also into a lot of cryptocurrency, probably because we can see that there is something going on with our financial system, and there's got to be something else out there that we can put our money into just to protect ourselves. Obviously, cryptocurrency is quite volatile, but oil has shown us the way today and has blown cryptocurrency out of the water with its volatility. Not even cryptos can go below zero, because at the end of the day, once they're sold at zero, they're at zero. And really most aren't going to go to zero because there's always going to be someone holding something which aren't selling. And it's going to be 99.9999% down. Whereas oil in this case has gone below zero. What does that mean? It just means that they are now paying people to get rid of the oil. And right now we can see that it's mostly due to the pandemic going around the world at the moment. No one is using oil. The oil that's been produced is getting stored on land, and the land is running out where they store this oil. So where are they going to put it? So if they've got nowhere to put it, then what are they going to do with it once they've produced it? Where are they going to store it? They've got nowhere to store it. So it's just like, how do they get rid of it? What's the cheapest way to get rid of it? So let's put that up as the first thing on there. We've got oil. And what's going on? Storage looks like the main issue. Let's check out some of the numbers from what some of these countries can produce oil at. And if we look at Saudi Arabia, these guys can produce it at $10 a barrel, way cheaper than anything else we can get anywhere else around the world. And we're even seeing it go below that. Iraq, we can see it's around $10 to $11 a barrel. US is considerably more. Some of the other countries around Middle East are more as well. And they say it sits somewhere around $20 a barrel to produce. We've also just seen Russia order its companies to cut oil productions by 20%. Let's throw that up here as well. Russia, they are going by negative 20% of production. Now, I've got that up there and I'll talk about that later, because this is possibly somewhere that we can make money from if we are prepared to get into the futures market. And that is a little bit of a game on its own. On top of Russia cutting productions, we're most likely going to see oil rigs close down, other companies go out of business that are producing oil, that have got anything to do with the oil industry. Obviously, that's going to lay over to the layoffs within the industry as well. So let's put that up on the board. And we've got bankruptcies. I guess the next question is, how long do we think this is all going to take? Could it be 6 months? Could it be 12, 18, 24? No one really knows how long it's going to take. If we look at, say, 6 to 12 months, and we've got all of these companies going out of business, we'll have the countries start to cut like we already see here with Russia. And this is only just a few hours after the oil market's gone below zero. So we've got all this playing out. Obviously, at some point in the future, we'll all be able to leave our homes again and start to travel around, hopefully use some planes sometime in the future. If we don't all have to get vaccinated and chipped from Bill Gates, we'll be allowed out and get to experience life again to its fullest. So at that point, we will have more demand on fuel. How long that takes, no one really knows for sure, but I think they would be pricing that into the futures contracts coming up. So that can lead us over to try and figure out where these prices may go. So we've got the oil futures contracts. So where we find this is on the cmegroup.com. Basically, this is where all of the future oil prices are traded. And we can see that this month's oil closed down, at least it's showing here, it keeps updating because it was just so crazy, closed down around $16, negative $16. But for next month, for June, it's still sitting somewhere around $21. And as we move down the months into July, it's $27, August, $29, September, $30. Pretty much there's an extra dollar every month after that. And then we just sort of scale out to December and January, 32, 33. So it's possible that they're pricing in the borders opening up again, international flights opening up some point in the future. There'll definitely be a lot of pressure on the governments to do this. And just checking out those prices, it seems like we will get a pretty strong bounce back from these lows. Obviously, oil can't stay in the negatives forever, and we've probably seen the biggest drop we'll ever see in our lifetimes. At least that's my view. And we're going to see a bounce back at some point. So I guess the real thing is, how do we make any sort of money from this? Futures trading is a big kettle of fish on its own. If you wanted to get a full contract in the future, a contract's 1,000 barrels of oil, so you'd just be doing 1,000 times the price of that month. That spot price of, say, June is at $21, so 21 US multiplied by 1,000, that's 21,000 US dollars for a barrel of oil. Now that's a huge risk, and you're probably not going to want to take that all in the same hit. So there's possibility of stuff like CFDs, so contracts of difference, which will just take out a smaller percentage of that whole contract. Maybe you're going to look at 1% of the contract, 10% of the contract. So if we just left it with, say, 1% or 10%, we're getting somewhere around $200 to $2,000 of that full contract. That is somewhere that could make money. With that said, the contract's already sitting at $20, and as I look here, we're still sitting at negative 16. So the May contract is due to expire on the 22nd of April. And as I film this, we have just opened trading for the 21st of April. So essentially it had to have been done yesterday or today. You've got to get out of those positions. So there's no room left for us to make an upside from these negative positions up to next month's contract at 21 US dollars. That'd be awesome if we could go from negative 16 to $21. It's a obviously massive gain. But really, we're going to be starting to trade in the next month. So the risk begins again. Is there going to be any demand for oil before that contract is out? That's the real risk here. And I guess that's why it's too much of a risk for many people to play. Looking at the CFDs, so the smaller contracts, that could be something to go with. Obviously, it's got to be in the trading plan, and it's just not a gamble like the rest of people use trading as. But there's a possibility within that, if you have got some experience, to look into CFDs and just take out a smaller position in next month's oil futures contract. So it's been a huge day, the biggest day I'll probably ever see in my lifetime in investing. Having said that, I'm only in my mid-30s and there's probably plenty more years to go. We can see some crazy stuff happen. But today marks the day that we saw oil down 300%. And if we just do a quick recap over here, we have the reasons why. Storage. Right, they've got nowhere to put the oil and it expires today, essentially. Where are they going to put this oil? So essentially, if the price is well down, then they have to pay someone else to take the oil, as opposed to them having to pay to put it in storage. Russia's one example of why demand might pick up some point in the future. Russia's cutting, maybe the Middle East will cut. I assume the US has got a cut. Probably see some of those stories come out later today. And then obviously some of the places in South America, in particular Venezuela, what's going to happen there? That was their only form, or their major form of income is their oil industry. And oil is now worth nothing. They need to pay people to take the oil from them. That could lead to bankruptcies. I mean, I don't think that's too much of a stretch to imagine yourself. There's no money left in it. Therefore, who's going to be paying for the jobs? Bankruptcy in the company. Then there's a shortage on people who are actually digging the oil up, shortage of people who are refining the oil and then also transporting the oil. So this is where we'll see the big reset in the oil, and crashes come through. companies and countries to cut oil. There's some trying to raise some demand. Bankruptcies in other businesses. Demand can go up again sometime in the future. Well, that'll limit supply, obviously. And as we get out of our confinement here in our homes, we'll start to increase the demand. So maybe sometime in the future, 6 to 12 months, who knows? Let me know what you think. Do you think it's that soon, or do you think this thing's got a lot longer to go, and why? Why do you think this has got more than 6 to 12 months to go, if indeed it does? Let's see what happens in the future. We have an absolute ton of oil supply. Let's see if our oil actually goes down at the pumps around our cities that we live in. I have a feeling it's not going to go down that much, but let's hope that we at least see some prices back like they were 20 years ago. And from there, we could possibly see the supply start to increase and at least bubble around the price of production at $20 to $30 a barrel sometime in the future. If you are making some money from this oil dip, let us know in the comments down below how you were able to do that. As I mentioned in the video, I've only got that one option of CFDs, and that's looking at the forward month as well, which is already sitting at $21. If you've got a strategy there, let us know. Otherwise, this might just be something that we sit out and just watch in awe and save money on our fuel for our car, which we can barely use anyway because there's nowhere to go. Thank you so much for joining me at another video. Be sure to subscribe and of course smash that like button. It helps out the channel and helps share the video around to more people on the internet. I appreciate your time for watching, and I'll see you at the next one. Remember, until next time, have more fun to get more done.